This week, special counsel Jack Smith filed motions to end his 2 criminal cases against President-elect Donald Trump, citing a Justice Department policy against prosecuting sitting presidents. On Truth Social, Trump posted, "I persevered against all odds and won." It's quite a conclusion to an unprecedented legal chapter, but could it have ended differently? What if Merrick Garland had more quickly appointed Smith, and if Smith had beaten Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg to the courthouse? Joining me now is CNN senior legal analyst, former federal prosecutor Elie Honig. Elie, this is the exit interview, okay? This is the last time we're doing this. You and I have talked about all 4 of these investigations. I wanted to have one more go-round with a timeline that we created. Put the timeline up on the screen. It's got all the significant dates relative to from January 6th through Election Day. I would call out the fact that from Merrick Garland being sworn in as AG until Donald Trump was indicted for election interference, it was 18 months. Could this have gone a different way? And if so, how?
Absolutely, Michael. Well, the key gap there is one you identified. So Merrick Garland becomes Attorney General in March of 2021, and then it takes almost 2 years, 20 months, until November of 2022, when Merrick Garland names Jack Smith as special counsel. From there, Jack Smith then takes about 8 months to indict the January 6th case. We're now into August of 2023, which leaves him essentially 1 year to get this case through all the pretrial, through all the appeals over immunity and other issues, and get it tried before the 2024 election, which was never going to succeed. But let's say, what if Merrick Garland had appointed Jack Smith right away? Let's say April of 2021. In that instance, even if we give some extra time, let's be generous here and build in some extra time, Jack Smith would have gotten those cases indicted in mid-2022, early to mid-2022. We would have absolutely had a trial, even if you account for the immunity decision, in mid to late 2023, maybe early 2024. And to me, it would have been impossible for Donald Trump to run out the clock. We absolutely would have had trials and verdicts well in advance of the 2024 election.
It means that Donald Trump would have been tried in front of a D.C. federal jury with Judge Tanya Chutkan presiding. What would that have looked like?
Well, you can never predict what a jury would do in a hypothetical, but we do have a couple important data points. Number one, Judge Chutkan ruled against Donald Trump on virtually every issue of importance. I'm sure she would have continued to do so. Second of all, if you look at the 94 different federal districts in this country, the one where Donald Trump is least popular, number 94 of 94, is the federal district for Washington, D.C. He usually gets 5 to 10% of the vote. So he would have had a brutal jury pool there. And again, finally, if you look at the indictment, the evidence looks fairly strong and straightforward. So you can't predict, but I would not have liked Donald Trump's odds if that trial had happened at all.
And you know from our prior conversations, I've long believed that where Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg was the first on the so-called hush money payment case, he kind of sullied the water for all the prosecutors who followed him because, in my opinion, the American people looked at that case and largely concluded it's not a case that should have been brought. In this alternative reality scenario, it would have been Jack Smith going first. One wonders whether Garland or Fani Willis would even have followed. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think it is clear that the American public was not at all moved by Alvin Bragg's indictment and even the trial and conviction. In this hypothetical alternative timeline, for sure, Jack Smith would have indicted his cases before Alvin Bragg came down with his. For sure, Jack Smith would have been the first one to get to trial. And would Alvin Bragg then have piled on his case on top of those? Would Fani Willis have piled on her case on top of those? I guess we don't know, but I think by the weakest of the 4 cases going first and being the only one to go to trial, that really undermined the entire process here, the entire effort to bring Donald Trump to accountability.
Final observation from yours truly. To those who say, well, Garland could not have moved more quickly because he needed to watch the investigation by the House Select Committee, my response is to say all he needed was a television set turned on January 6th. Your thought?
Yeah. That's a nonsense excuse for Merrick Garland. That's opposite world. The way it almost always happens is if prosecutors are serious about their case, they will ask Congress to hold off, to stand down. And we've seen that happen in other contexts. This idea that Merrick Garland had to wait for Congress is ridiculous. I mean, DOJ has way better, way more powerful investigative tools, the entire FBI, criminal subpoena power. If Merrick Garland was serious about digging into this, he could have done it from day one. And it's worth noting, Michael, at Merrick Garland's confirmation hearing, he was asked repeatedly, will you look into January 6th? Will you investigate at all levels, not just the ground? And Merrick Garland said, yes, I will. Well, all he did for the next 20 months was focus on the ground level until he finally got around to belatedly appointing Jack Smith.
Well, and waited until 3 days after Donald Trump had announced formally that he was running for his old office. I mean, I think that's significant. Ellie, exit interview now concluded. Thank you as always.
Thanks, Michael. Talk to you soon.